Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never imagined that a single night could change everything. My name is Emma. I'm 34, and for the past 10 years, I've been married to Daniel. From the outside, people probably thought we were perfect. He was charming, dependable, and endlessly patient. I thought I knew him, thought I understood the rhythm of our lives together. But I was wrong. So wrong. It started subtly, the way most disasters do. At first, it was small things. The way he barely looked at me during dinner, or how he would nod politely at my stories without actually listening. I told myself I was imagining it, that life had just gotten busy. Work, bills, and the endless chores of our suburban life could make anyone distant. But deep down, I knew something was off. I remember that Wednesday vividly. Daniel came home later than usual, and instead of greeting me at the door, he slipped into the living room, grabbed the remote, and turned on the news. I stood there in the doorway, holding a glass of wine I'd poured for us both, heart-thumping, and said, "Hey, how was your day?" He muttered a short, "Fine," not even looking at me. The casual dismissal stung more than I expected. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out if I'd done something wrong. Weeks passed, and the distance grew like an invisible wall. I tried conversation, tried affection, tried being funny and charming like I used to be. Each time, it felt like he was somewhere else entirely, his mind sealed off from me. I began to notice things I had ignored before. His phone disappearing into his pocket when I entered the room, the faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine, the way he seemed to tense whenever I mentioned a friend or colleague. One evening, I decided to confront him. We sat in the dim kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence between us. I asked gently, "Daniel, is something wrong? Are we okay?" He stared at me for a long moment, eyes blank, and then said something I'll never forget. "I've been here, haven't I? I've been watching everything. Watching everything. Not engaging, not helping, just observing." My stomach dropped. Watching what? I whispered. Us. Our marriage. Every fight. Every argument. Every little disappointment. "I've seen it all, Emma." And yet I said nothing. I let it happen. His voice was quiet but steady, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted him to explain why he'd been silent while I had been sinking into panic, desperation, and loneliness. But he didn't elaborate. That silence, his choice, was heavier than any words he could have said. The next few days were a haze of tension. I tried to act normal, but every glance, every word felt strained. I caught him staring out the window late at night, hands on the counter, jaw tight, like he was holding back a storm. And then there were the little things. My favorite mug missing from the cabinet, his subtle avoidance of our bedroom, the way he pretended to be absorbed in his laptop whenever I entered the room. Every small action confirmed my growing fear. Daniel had disengaged completely. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our life in my head. The first apartment we shared, the vacations, the late-night laughter, the mornings he made coffee just the way I liked it. It felt like a lifetime ago, like someone had taken those memories and buried them beneath the cold reality of now. Then came the night that shattered my fragile composure. I had arranged a quiet evening at home, hoping to reconnect. Candles, soft music, the kind of atmosphere we had once thrived on. I wore my favorite dress, my hair done just the way he liked it, trying to remind him subtly of the bond we had once shared. He walked in, glanced around, and said nothing, not a smile, not a word of acknowledgement. He simply went to the couch, picked up his laptop, and started typing. I tried again. "Daniel, remember when we used to dance in the kitchen?" He didn't look up. "Emma, please, not tonight." That phrase cut deeper than anything. Not tonight. It wasn't just refusal. It was an erasure of our past, of intimacy, of connection. I sat down opposite him, hands trembling, and whispered, "Why are you letting this happen? Why are you watching me fall apart?" He closed the laptop slowly, locking eyes with me for the first time that night. "Because I needed to see if you'd notice, if you'd fight, if you'd confront me. You didn't. And now here we are. Here we were. The words echoed in the kitchen, bouncing off walls that once held laughter. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. I had spent years trying to fix what he had already decided was broken. And worse, he had let it decay silently, savoring the slow collapse of our marriage without intervention, without confession, without a hint of remorse. I left the kitchen that night, stepping into the hallway as if the air had thickened around me. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fear, shock, and betrayal. I wanted to run, scream, anything, but instead, I simply stood there, listening to the faint click of his laptop shutting down, realizing that the man I had loved, trusted, and built a life would have been an observer of my pain, not a partner in it. And then, just as I was about to retreat to our bedroom, I saw him move. He didn't call my name, didn't reach out. He simply walked past me, calm, deliberate, like he had rehearsed every step of this night. That movement, the quiet assertion control, was the last straw. I understood then that nothing I did, no plea, no gesture, no confession of my own fear or heartbreak, would make a difference. He had chosen silence over love. The house felt colder than it had ever been, even in the dead of winter. And in that cold, Emma knew that the real disaster wasn't the fights or the small betrayals. It was a calculated, patient, quiet watching that had eaten our marriage alive. I stayed in the hallway for what felt like hours, though in reality it was only minutes. The cold settled into my bones, but it was nothing compared to the chill that had taken over my heart. Daniel had chosen to be a spectator while I crumbled, and in that silence, I finally understood the depth of his detachment. My hands shook as I picked up my phone, debating whether to call someone, anyone, or just leave. The decision came suddenly. I couldn't stay. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine when it had been decaying for years under his passive gaze. I grabbed my coat, my bag, and slipped quietly out the door, careful not to make a sound. The street was empty, quiet except for the distant hum of a late-night car. I walked without direction, my mind racing with the weight of every moment I had spent trying to hold us together while he had done nothing. I ended up at my friend Rachel's apartment. She opened the door half asleep, her eyes widening when she saw me standing there in the dark, coat damp from a light drizzle. "Emma? What's going on?" she asked, voice thick with concern. I could barely speak, my chest tight, but I managed to whisper, "It's Daniel. I just can't anymore." She pulled me inside, wrapping me in a blanket as I sank onto her couch, tears finally spilling over. Over the next few days, I replayed every interaction, every small sign I had ignored. The way he would casually disengage, the coldness in his voice, the calmness in his eyes when I begged for connection. It wasn't just neglect. It was intention. He had been observing me like a scientist studying a specimen, and in that calculated distance, our marriage had died. I felt anger, heartbreak, and an undeniable sense of betrayal. But somewhere beneath it all, there was clarity. I had been blind to reality, blind to the slow erosion of love, and now, for the first time, I could see the truth. Then, a call came that shook me to my core. It was Daniel. My heart thumped, a chaotic mix of hope and fear. I answered, voice barely steady. "Emma, we need to talk," he said. Calm, cold, precise. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Daniel, I don't think there's anything left to talk about," I said. But he insisted, asking me to meet at a cafe we had once loved, a place where laughter and warmth had been commonplace in a life that now felt like someone else's memory. I agreed, cautiously, aware that this would either provide closure or another layer of torment. The cafe was empty except for the soft hum of lights and the faint smell of coffee and pastries. Daniel was there before me, seated in a corner booth, hands folded, eyes scanning the room before settling on me. I felt a jolt, recognition, pain, and something else I couldn't name all at once. He didn't apologize, not in the way I expected. Instead, he spoke with the same deliberate calm that had haunted our last weeks together. "I watched everything, Emma," he said. "I knew you were struggling. I saw the way you tried, how you reached for connection I wasn't willing to give. And yet," I stayed silent. I swallowed hard, trying to process. Why did you let it happen?" My voice broke, a whisper lost amid the background hum. Because I needed to understand something, he said simply. I needed to see if love could survive your persistence, if connection could be reclaimed. And the answer, it can't. Not with us. Shock washed over me like ice water. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg him to stay, to fix it, but the reality was undeniable. He had made his choice. Our love, the life we had built, the countless nights spent dreaming together, had all been observed, dissected, and left to decay. And then came the strangest part, acceptance. Not joy, not relief, just the calm, unnerving clarity that comes when you finally see things as they are. I realized that the life I had imagined, the marriage I had tried to salvage, had been a fantasy sustained by my hope and denial. The truth was far harsher, but also freeing. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on both of us. Finally, he stood, leaving a crisp $10 bill for my coffee. I hope you find peace, Emma, he said. And without another word, he walked out, leaving me with the bitter taste of reality and the faint echo of a life that once had warmed but no longer did. Walking back to Rachel's apartment, I felt the strained combination of exhaustion and release. My world had shifted irrevocably. The life I had known dissolved in the cold observation of someone I had trusted with my heart. But within that dissolution was space, a chance to breathe, to heal, to rebuild. In the following weeks, I focused on myself. Work, friends, long walks at night, journaling every thought and feeling that had once been stifled by the weight of a silent partner. Each day, I grew stronger, more grounded, and more aware of what I deserved. The betrayal had been painful, but it had also been a catalyst for growth I hadn't anticipated. Daniel never reached out again. And while a part of me still ached for the life that could have been, another part of me finally understood the cruel, liberating truth. Love cannot survive silence. And sometimes, the worst mistakes in life teach you the most vital lessons about who you are and what you truly deserve. By the time the leaves turned amber and the nights grew longer, I was no longer the woman who had trembled in the hallway, fearing abandonment. I was Emma, still scarred, but unbroken, finally able to step into a future where my heart was mine alone to protect.